Well, to discuss, we can bring in Dr. Chloe Brimicombe. She's a climate scientist at the Royal Meteorological Society. Great to have you with us on the program today. So we've, already seen baking temperatures here in France. The other week, it was 38 degrees Celsius here in Paris. Are lethal heat waves like this Europe's new climate reality?
So what we're seeing in Europe this year is we've had a very dry spring leading up to summer. And so when we have heat waves, what we know is when we have drought conditions and very dry soil, this exacerbates the heat, causing the temperatures to be a lot hotter. And so in Spain, we broke the record for the hottest temperature seen in June. And this is very near to where we're seeing the wildfires now in France, near Narbonne and Marseille. So wildfires are exacerbated by drought conditions, also these high heat conditions and high winds. And so this is a concern that we're seeing them so early in the summer season.
And what are some, other aggravating factors that contribute to this kind of extreme heat dome?
So we know that these sort of events are increasing with climate change. So we know that heat waves in general are increasing in intensity. So the temperatures we see are a lot higher. The duration that the heat waves last for, the frequency they occur for, but then also the area exposed is growing across Europe. And this is also the case for sort of drought. So we're usually more likely to see drought in the summer period in parts of Europe, especially along the Mediterranean coast. And this is also exacerbating wildfires. But with wildfires, another key area that is causing them or causes them to spread is also to do with vegetation management. So that is something that can be improved to slow down the spread of wildfires and put in wildfire breaks between vegetation to stop or slow down the spread to help tackle them.
Now, there's a huge debate here in France, actually, surrounding the use of air conditioning, because not only does the infrastructure make installations very difficult, but of course, there's also the environmental factor that needs to be considered. All this to say that France is not well equipped or adapted to such levels of heat. So how can people deal with this in the years to come? I mean, what are some measures that France could begin putting in place?
So France is one of the countries that put in place a heat health plan very quickly after the devastating 2003 heat wave, which caused the death of thousands of people across the country. But it needs to look at its urban infrastructure and how to adapt that. So there are plans in place to do cooling in Paris, but obviously Marseille is a very big city as well, and there's other big cities in the country, and these need to have urban plans drawn up, but also the investment. I think what countries in Europe tend to do is do a lot towards carbon mitigation, so reducing carbon emissions through things like the Green Deal, although this hasn't taken place fast enough. But now, because of this, we also need adaptation, and this is kind of an area that's missing in not just France, but European in general plans. And so we need investment in urban planning, increasing natural ventilation, so that if air conditioning isn't a good option because obviously it exacerbates emissions and heating in urban areas, this can be put in place, but it involves policy change in France, but across the continent, as well as putting adaptation pressures on individuals to stay cool and drink more water and all of these sort of things.
So in the longer term, then, what can we expect in the coming decade? Because one thing that scientists all agree on is, and I'm sure that you agree as well, is that heat waves are only going to become more and more the norm.
Yes, so the projections for the coming decade is that we would see up to 2 to 3 above pre-industrial levels of mean temperature warming. And if you think about the distribution of temperature like a pile of sand and you push it over, then the tail gets bigger. And that means that we're likely to see more and more heat waves, more intense. Also, these hazards occurring together called compound hazards, where we have drought, heat waves, and then wildfire. And then in the autumn, we have rainfall, and this causes flash flooding. in a lot of these regions. And so that's why it's so important to have these sort of shopping bag solutions of adaptation that address all of these hazards together, because they're occurring together or consecutively, and that's only going to increase with climate change. But it's also very important that we have this reduction in emissions so we don't get to the 2 to 3 degrees of above pre-industrial levels of temperature warming, because if we can lower that, the further we lower that and the quicker we do that, the less worse these extremes will get. And that's really encouraging, because we have the solutions in front of us. We just need to have basically the action, and we see that at a local level in countries. We just need to scale that up now.
And I'm wondering also, what effect will climate change have on ocean ecologies and vice versa, because the oceans and the role they play in regulating temperature is not something that we talk about enough.
That's so true. So at the moment, there's a marine heat wave off the coast of the Mediterranean as well. And we know with marine heat waves, when we have storms coming over them, the latest research is to think that this could intensify storms that come to the region in the autumn. But we don't know enough about the link between marine heat waves and land heat waves. Again, we think that this could be raising the humidity, and therefore this means that we can sweat less during land heat waves. But it just affects all of the ecology of the ocean, and also sort of fishing industries as well. And the ocean is a major heat sink. So when we're producing all of these emissions, it absorbs most of them. And so it's really important to reduce the emissions as well for the ecology of the oceans. But also it could be that these marine heat waves have a really big link to the extremes we're seeing on land. And that is something we need to explore further. But it shows the importance of protecting our oceans as well as the land that we live in.
Indeed. Now, what impact does US President Donald Trump's destruction of the American climate research system have? I mean, how does something like that have ramifications for Europe and the rest of the world as well?
It's had quite a lot of ramifications. So I have colleagues that were climate scientists and meteorologists in the US, and they've been facing a lot of cuts to their funding, and also lots of people that have just started their careers have also lost their jobs. And so there's quite a lot of people that are highly skilled looking for jobs in America. And then what we've seen in terms of the science community is specific positions being set up in France and across Europe to try and take some of those scientists so that they can continue their work. But it's not just in climate change, it's also in global health. It's thought it's going to cost lots of lives, but also lots of money. But, I think maybe let's see, because that's all we can do with this. But it goes to show just how political decisions really matter, whether that's in the US, but also in terms of European countries. And actually, it's quite promising, because we thought that quite a lot of European countries might go to more authoritarian schemes in terms of voting, but actually a lot of that hasn't yet materialized. And maybe this will, prevent that from happening, or we'll see actually, because people want climate action. That's what we know from people across different countries. And so maybe if we see that turn into political appetite, that would be really great, and we'll actually have the reduction in emissions and the adaptation. We have seen a faster pickup in Europe, and so let's just hope that continues.
Let's hope indeed. Dr. Chloe Brimicombe, it's been really great to hear from you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.